I'm a mute. Now we're good. How are you? Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. And welcome to day 4 of O2LAC Virtual Week. Yes, we have made it this far. Yes, we a little bigger bags under our eyes, but we're very excited and super excited about today's first session. As you know, for the past 9 years, O2LAC has offered a space for technology service providers and companies from across Latin America and the Caribbean to network, to explore business opportunities through our matchmaking system, and to learn about the latest trends in technology directly from both the companies that are pushing the envelope in their areas, as well as the industry experts that closely follow them. Today's session will be conducted entirely in English. Esta sesión será en inglés. Lastly, we invite you to share your questions for today's presenters on the chat. The team will be reviewing them, and we will share a couple before the session ends. As you know, today's session is called From Disruption to Opportunity, Global Services in the Coronavirus Era, and it is an honor to introduce the speakers that join us today. Avinash Vashista, or as we call him, Avi, is the Global Chairman and CEO of Tholons, Inc. He is the former chairman and CEO of Accenture India, where he ran a 10 billion global delivery India P&L and a workforce of over 200,000 employees. Prior to Accenture, he was the founder of Tholons and Neo IT, and earlier with Nortel and AT&T in the US and the UK. Avi has led investments in over 30 companies and has been a limited partner in 5 VC funds and has worked with clients like Bank of America, Exxon, Vodafone, Siemens, Goldman Sachs, Visa, Walmart, etc. He's also the author of best-selling books, The Offshore Nation and Innovation at Scale, and he has been a speaker for more than 300 conferences worldwide. Thank you, Avi, for being here with us today. We also have Arvind Ramnani, and Avi will be introducing him later, but Arvind Ramnani is the managing director at Piper Sandler, and he will be the second speaker for today. Avi, welcome back to O2LAC Virtual this year. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it and look forward to this virtual presentation. Just let me know if my screen is visible.
We are still not seeing your screen.
Okay. Okay. I guess I will just share the screen. And
there you go. Now we see your screen. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, great. Well, today what I'm going to do is talk about where we are in terms of the industry. So I have been associated with the industry for the last 25 years. Was involved when the industry was founded. Working with some of the biggest players in this industry when they were, hardly, companies. So it has been an exciting journey, but this pandemic that we have has definitely caused a significant disruption in the industry. But at the same time, I also look at it as an opportunity because the entire industry has been, at least over the last 10 years, going through a journey of digital transformation. Every company has taken a different approach, but everyone is somewhere in the digital transformation. What this pandemic has done is accelerated that journey significantly. So we would have probably reached where we can reach, let's say in the next 12 months, we would probably reach in the next, let's say 5 to 10 years. So I look at this as a significant opportunity. And one more thing, and this is one of the key takeaways I want you to kind of take away from today's presentation, is up until now, the big outsourcing destinations were being looked at from the fact that can they provide a significant amount of labor force, workforce, if you may, significant amount. For example, a company may say that I need 500 people with this particular expertise. And at the same time, can it be done at a low cost? And so some of the destinations globally were a big choice because they had volumes of labor at low cost. Today, I think what is happening because of AI, because of innovation, and because of intelligent automation is it's not necessary that you need 500 people. The challenge that the clients will be asking you to do is, can I do the same work with 50 people, but also can I bring in some innovation, some artificial intelligence into the stuff where I don't even need to automate, basically, because the AI does that job for me. So I think keep that in mind while we go through this presentation. And we will also see as to how different companies are faring with that. And that's something that I would introduce Arvind, and he will share with what the different companies are doing. If you look at some of the business trends that have been shaping the last 10 years, if you may, there are some business trends. Number one, I think, is data. So data is the lifeline of this industry. When we look at any industry, any company, it is the data supply chain that we should be looking at, if you look at it. If you look at it, intelligent automation, and what we probably call, a lot of people call as robotics process automation, is at the very heart of automating the workforce, if you may. And then if you look at other things, AI is making a big impact. Everyone will eventually go into cloud. And I think the fact that people are working from home, everyone is working from home, most of the companies are thinking, wish we would have accelerated our cloud journey. But I'm also very pleasantly surprised as to how most of the industry has been able to successfully have people work from home. And really speaking, I think the next thing we will see is a significant acceleration towards cloud. Let me look at as to how the clients are looking at things today. Now, if you look at the transformation, I think 20 years ago, people said, well, we are trying to take things offshore. We're trying to take things from the US, for example, or from Europe onto, let's say, Latin America. And people say, it's fine. I mean, you speak the language, that's okay. You do have very skilled people, but you don't know how my work gets done. You don't know my domain knowledge. How will you be able to do it? So that was a big issue at that point, the big barrier itself. But today, when we look at it, that is not a question anymore. We were able to transition work very successfully. Today, when we are trying to basically go on a digital transformation, don't think about as to how we did things 20 years ago. But one way to look at it is we can intelligently automate. We can take it to cybershore. Rather than take it to offshore, we can take it to cybershore. So that's a given. But I think clients want more. What is the meaning of AI? What's the meaning of design thinking? What's the meaning of being creative? So let me just look at it this way. And this is something that we have practiced in Accenture, and I'm sure this is the same way that companies like Deloitte and others look at it. Don't look at this as a technology first. Look at engaging with a client first. What does the client want? Client is not going to ask you today as to what technology can I use to do my work? No, the client is going to say, what can you do for me? And at that point, you forget all technology and say, client, tell me what business you are in, whereby, first of all, you know the client's business, but when you ask the client as to what is the experience you want to deliver to your end customer, what's experience? And the client says, well, I can dream about it, but it's not possible. And you say, no, don't worry about being possible. That is my responsibility. Right now, you talk about what is the experience you want to deliver to your end customers. And you let the client dream about it. Now, very, very important, the client doesn't even know how they can dream, how much they can dream. So you really bring in your design thinking team and the kind of people that you normally see who design the ads on the billboards. And you sometimes say, well, to the ad is like, wow, nice ad, but hey, what a big dream they have. You exactly do the same thing with your client. So you come up with a picture that the client dreams in terms of the customer experience. Then what you do is you go out there and try to find an innovation out there that can make that dream come possible. And thirdly, you use AI and intelligent automation to implement that dream. Yes, I mean, there will be some people required, but don't base it on the people itself. Now, what this does is, and this model that I have talked about has been successfully implemented by most of the leading firms in the world, including Accenture, very successfully with clients. Now, the first element, which I say reimagining the customer experience, requires two things at least. One is design thinking, but also very importantly, knowing the customer intimately, knowing their business intimately. And that's what we call as consulting. And the middle box is innovation. Innovation doesn't happen in large firms. Innovation doesn't happen in even the IT and the IT services industry. It happens in the startups. So it doesn't matter how small the startup is. We have to find out where the innovation is. We have to find a way of integrating that startup into your solution. So if this is basically a network that you normally need. So it doesn't matter which company you are, whether you are small, medium, or a large IT or a BPO company. This is the kind of ecosystem that you need to build in. You have your clients who are willing, who are very anxious to do innovation. Then you have your companies that can actually act as platform to be able to enable delivery of services. You have to be able to go out there and look for a network of startups that can help your client with innovative solution. You need to be able to, at the same time, find people who know how to bridge the large enterprise with the startups. And then a lot of times, these startups that you're working with need money. So if you really like them, maybe you as a company could be a strategic investor in them. Or you work with VC firms who can actually invest in them. At the same time, you are a client and you may actually become a strategic investor through the work that you give to them. So this is a very, very new ecosystem. It's a very new ecosystem. It's very entrepreneurial. Doesn't matter whether you're an Accenture or whether you are a small company. This is, some segments of this is something that you have to implement. Let me talk a little bit about what are some of the examples of go-to-market today. Previously people would say that, my client has asked for finance and accounting outsourcing. My client has, asked for mortgage processing. My client has asked for insurance processing, things like that in terms of the process, or they have asked us to outsource the HR process. Or they have said, we need 50 people on Java programming. This is not the way I think our clients are going to ask us. It's a very, very big change. The clients are basically saying, guys, I do not want to get you in to say, well, you can come in, look at, study me, and then eventually figure out what to do and do it for me. I want to listen to what solutions you have. When they say solutions you have, that means what is the innovation from, let's say, a startup or from something that you have developed that you have incorporated in the solution that will reduce my cost and the deployment by at least 50%, So that's a big challenge. So like, for example, right now you have 18 solutions on this page, and these are solutions that, that at least we have been going to the market with. And each of these solutions has an innovative startup at the heart of it. So the intel inside is what you need to look for in each and every solution. Now, for example, I'll take some examples of solutions that we are going. For example, this is a solution for digital customer service agents. Everyone in the call center industry, customer service industry today uses that stuff. People use chatbot. But really speaking, right now, if you do not have a chatbot that has an omni-channel capability of integrating the web, the chatbot as well as conversational AI. When conversational AI is different than IVR, it is essentially like the Alexa. It's like the Google Home, for example. So it is that people are now, and then every time you are integrating the conversational AI or the chatbot, on the back end, you do the intelligent automation stuff. So real time, digital workers, the bots are essentially processing the stuff, and you're able to get things to the client right away in real time. If you look at the cloud stuff, right now, AWS and Azure, Microsoft, essentially manage millions of servers with only a few thousands of people. Now, that technology is available today to small and medium businesses also. People are not deploying that. In fact, today, for example, if you were to kind of manage a cloud, you may need 50 people who are certified in Azure or AWS. But if you have something like this technology, then you don't need more than 2 people, not 50, just 2 only. So there are multiple companies, but one of the companies is Duplo Cloud, for example. and they provide that capability. So that they make it the cloud migration, the DevOps, SecOps, and work from home seamless in that sense. Then you look at the supply chain. I mean, if you look at this pandemic, it has really caused a big disruption in the supply chain. Amazon has done great because they had a supply chain that was AI driven, that was very well integrated digitally. This is exactly what each and every industry needs to do, whether it's the food industry, whether it's the pharma industry, or whether it's the retail industry. If you look at the SAP, there is significant amount of work that's going to happen in the SAP itself. For you as an IT company, this is a big opportunity. And all the people combined right now will not be able to do work to migrate the SAP legacy to SAP S/4HANA, by the way. Automation is required. So this is, again, great opportunity for the industry to kind of jump on the automation bandwagon. Mortgage loan risk management. A lot of mortgage are going to be redone, modified this time in the US, in everywhere, by the way, everywhere. And this AI solution, for example, can look at all the mortgages based on the AI they have. They can tell exactly to 96.5% accuracy which mortgages are going to be impacted and what the bank can do in terms of options that will be good for the client as well as good for the bank. Amazing stuff. I mean, this will reduce the work that they have to do in terms of handling clients, which right now they're not able to handle because they do not know who to address, what to address. It will reduce the work by 70%, 70, by the way. More importantly, the banks will be able to service the customers as well. So amazing solution is there in the market. Healthcare fraud, waste, and abuse. For example, in the US, there is trillions of dollars in each and every state, by the way, almost, very, very large, 500 billion plus abuse that happens in terms of workers' compensation and a lot of the healthcare claims that are there essentially. Now, this one basically looks at the profiling of the providers who file claims and is able to detect those frauds, by the way, and give exactly details as to this is a fraud for these reasons. And this would have taken thousands of people to be able to do something like this before. So essentially, if you look at it, I think the way you should look as a company is what are the assets that you have and what are the assets that you can co-develop working with some of the innovative startups out there, work with the client to bring those solutions to them. One of the things that we have not looked at in the industry before, but this is something that companies like Accenture and IBM, the Deloitte, KPMG, E&Y have been doing is looking at change management. When you change a process, see right now you were just putting in people who instead of the onshore, you were people putting it offshore. So the process probably remained the same. But in this case where you're bringing in AI and automation, the process will change drastically. Now you as an IT company, you as a BPO company have not done this before, but you need to start thinking about it because you're not going to call a consultant to come in and say, this process has changed. What do I need to do with the new process? How do I train people? How do I communicate the new process to people? This is not natural to you. This is what a consulting company does. But this is one skill that you need to bring in either through a very close collaboration with another company, or you need to bring in people who are change management experts within your company. So this is some point that I would really like you guys to look at is clients will not feel comfortable if you are not able to propose the fact that you will also manage the change of the process, for example. Just a little bit on Tholons. A lot of you guys have known us for the last 20 years, between New IT and Tholons. We have been publishing white papers, regular reviews about the industry, and also we have been publishing the index that is there, which is essentially an index of the top 50, now we call it the digital nations, and the top 100 super cities, if you may. And I want to kind of give you a peek over here in terms of the report that will be published next week. So I thought I'll give a peek this week itself. Now, what has happened this year is we have changed our ranking significantly by giving a lot of weightage to digital. And that has meant that a lot of cities which are from the Western world, if you may, like the US and the UK, Australia, etc., have come in to the top 20, for example. And a lot of cities which were stars in the outsourcing world have kind of moved down. So for example, if you look at it, we have the super cities essentially where you have Toronto there, you have San Francisco there, you have London there, and Dublin is now a significantly top 5 city essentially. And then you have the ranking of the countries. For example, UK has come in the top 5, and Canada has moved to the 6th position, for example. Philippines, that used to be, Brazil has improved its position. Now, why Brazil versus Philippines, for example? Because Brazil has a great economy, a big GDP, and they are the ones that will be able to have a lot of domain knowledge, and they will be able to bring that domain knowledge. And there's a lot of innovation going on in the larger cities in Latin America, for example, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Sao Paulo, Bogota. I mean, it's amazing to see as to what innovation is going on. I think this is the time when it is not the size of the country, it is the innovation that is out there, and the cost is very reasonable. So I think there's going to be very, very less reliance and focus on cost, and that's the reason why these cities have come up much higher, even though they're high-cost cities, because they have great solutions which reduce the cost not by 20%, 30%. It reduces cost by 50 to 80% in that sense. You see some of the Latin American countries and cities on the chart there. I think Latin America has always been growing the fastest among all the regions in terms of globalization. And I think I look at this as a big opportunity going forward. So what's the key takeaway? Labor cost and scale of talent, that's the size of talent, is not necessarily a strategic advantage. It's a tactical advantage, not a strategic advantage anymore. Innovation and entrepreneurial and design skills are the key skills that we should focus on today. We need to engage with customers in terms of transforming their experience. If you do not focus on that, customers at some point will not look at you as being a preferred provider. Bring in innovation to architect the solution. So make innovation a very key part of your solution itself, and use intelligent automation and not people as much in terms of the implementation of it. So that was my presentation. And with this, I know we will basically have a question and answers towards the later part. With this, I would like to introduce Arvind. Arvind, I have known for over 20 years. He has been a veteran of this industry, worked with lots of CEOs of the largest companies. As an analyst, he has interviewed and talked to the CEOs of companies like DXC, Accenture, Infosys, Wipro, TCS. He knows this industry extremely well. And he graduated from the University of Michigan with a triple major from Luther College. And he's a very celebrated individual where he's got numerous awards from the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, Barron's, etc. And he also has been an entrepreneur where he grew in the very, very early days a company to about 1,200 plus people. So he has got the operational experience, a great industry view. So I wanted to kind of have him today to be able to give us his perspective on the industry and how the industry is changing. And to the question that we have today, how do we go from disruption to opportunity in this era? Arvind?
Thanks, Avi. Thanks for that very generous introduction. Certainly, appreciate your views that you provided earlier. I think at the outset, certainly the way you frame the industry and where things are pretty much agree with all of the points, and my I just want to make sure you're able to see my my screen. Share screen. Okay.
Yep, we can see it now.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So the way I kind of look at this this industry, very much like Avi as well. Kind of the overall industry has kind of really been reset because of COVID in the last few months. But even before COVID, you had this secular change towards cloud. Cloud had some inherent benefits, but it was really about developing agile organizations. So in my sort of prepared remarks, there are three main areas which I'm really going to touch upon. One is the future of work, which is really going to change everything across all industries. The second is really about the IT services companies, so companies such as Accenture, Globant, Infosys, Cognizant, touch upon those, and then I'll really cover I have some remarks on some of the global IT services companies. So with that, we'll kind of really get started on the future of work. So the way that we work has changed dramatically over the past 10 to 15 years, and we kind of just looking ahead. I think there are a number of large secular drivers that will really change how things are working even more. Some of the numbers that I look at are fairly large and really difficult to get your heads around. But I'll touch upon a few. There are about 75 million jobs that will be replaced by automation in the next 3 years. There are already 14 million jobs in the US alone that are outsourced, and another 5 to 7 million jobs in Europe that are outsourced. And this is driving truly what we call a global workforce working in sync with each other. And I also think with this pandemic, the world has shrunk quite a bit. With that, there are 120 million jobs that need to be reskilled over the next 3 years, and I think digital learning is a key component. And finally, with such a large workforce, the 85% of folks who are really not engaged in their work, and in order to drive organizations that are successful, you really need to engage your workforce and ensure employee well-being, which becomes honestly like a very difficult thing to do in an environment where everyone is either working from home or working across multiple locations. I think that there are a number of firms that will really shape the future of work. The first is firms that drive automation and really connect machines with humans to drive efficiencies. The second area is really the HR or the human capital management companies that will really drive employee well-being and engagement. And then the third is these IT services companies that are experts at sourcing and developing labor. The talent that resides in South America, the talent that resides in India and in other parts of Asia, is really kind of the trick to unlocking IT services. And then of course you have the collaboration tools, like the ones we're using right now, Zoom, to communicate. And then of course you have digital learning or online education to enable educating the workforce in mass. As I mentioned outside, I think this COVID or this pandemic is really going to accelerate the spend on digital, and the folks that were thinking about digital but had reservations or were thinking of going towards the cloud in a slow and measured way. This pandemic changes everything. I mean, I think what you're really going to have is this great kind of lockdown that you had in the last few months is going to lead to a digital awakening. And I think kind of the spend that on digital that would have taken 5 to 7 years is going to really be compressed in the next 2 years. The one point I do want to make is, this has already been a multi-year trend where, companies that were offering digital services, digital transformation, we're already seeing accelerated growth. So firms such as Globant, EPAM, Endava, that were 100% focused on digital, are growing at like 25% with already multi-billion-dollar revenue base, and then firms that were doing more of the legacy stuff was they were already kind of seeing growth that was challenged, and that's what's really driven valuations. I mean, as a Wall Street analyst, the one thing I do look at is how does this translate into actual valuations? And valuations have certainly been in the upswing over the past 5 to 6 years, and I expect this to continue in the next few years. With that, I'm going to move to the next section on the on the IT services. So if you kind of really take a step back and look at where CEOs or CIOs are thinking about their own companies, they're all focused on creating a superior customer journey. This is something Avi covered in this presentation. So whether you're a bank or a healthcare company or an insurance company, you're looking to create a frictionless, streamlined experience for your customers. What does this mean? So if you have used like Amazon or Netflix or Uber, the customer experience is very easy. You can get signed up, you can make order stuff, get it delivered to your home by Amazon in a very easy manner. Netflix, you can browse, you can look through titles. Netflix is smart enough to tell you, well, these are the type movies you're really going to like, or even kind of using an Uber. But then when you look into other aspects of your life, that's you're trying to get a banking transaction done, or if you need to go visit a doctor, the experience tends to be very manual and intensive, and these companies are trying to create more of a frictionless, streamlined experience. And the way they do this is really partner with firms such as Globant, Accenture, EPAM, and I'll cover some of the examples further down in the presentation. The workforce and the workplace are really going to blend in. We've already seen this with this increased use of internet and mobile phones. You really don't as a worker, you really don't leave your work because you're constantly engaging with folks on just through email, through cell phones, and it's become essentially like a single unit. And what companies are trying to do is they're trying to leverage these IT services firms to digitally transform, and it's certainly a multi-step and a continuous journey. I'm going to skip the next couple of slides. Yeah, to source this talent. Just to kind of touch upon what Avi has shown with his rankings is companies are willing to really go anywhere to get the right talent, and I think the way I look at this kind of sourcing talent is in a little bit of a simplistic manner. If you need talent that's going to have significant levels of innovation, you really go to Silicon Valley. I mean, that's really kind of the capital for innovation. If you need talent that has digital capabilities, South America is a significant area, United States is a significant area, and Eastern Europe is a significant area. And where you go for really cost arbitrage location, you typically go to Asia, you go to India to source a lower cost talent. And it's a pretty interesting market, 1.2 trillion in revenues. But I also think this market is growing quite nicely. Three legs to the stool. It's you have to provide advisory, consulting advisory to tell folks what really needs to be done. You have to have the technology expertise to actually implement on the advice you're providing, and then you got to execute on it, actually deliver the solution. And finally, I just really want to spend a couple of minutes on some of the leading IT services firms. The pure play digital firms, there are really a mix of public and private companies. So there's Globant from South America, Agile Thought from Mexico, GlobalLogic that has presence both in South America and Eastern Europe. Deloitte and Accenture, which are more global, and then you have more of these legacy firms such as DXC, Cognizant, Infosys that certainly have presence globally, but have large workforces in India. The two ones I really want to focus on are Globant. Globant has I've known Globant since 2008, and it really started out as a small regional player in Argentina, and over the years has become really like a global entity, seeing really nice growth. They have the kind of clients, Fortune 100 clients across the globe. Disney is the largest client, and the kind of work that Globant does is really what differentiates and really what brings value to an IT services firm. I think Disney is a good example where they're really changing the experience for children and or parents who go visit the Disney parks by creating a frictionless experience. They've created a wearable in the form of a band, what they call a magic band, and the magic band allows you to open your hotel room door, to get onto the rides in the park, to buy lunch, buy dinner, buy toys. It ends up being it allows you to enter the park, and to really kind of locate you in case the children get separated from the adults. So it's a fairly powerful tool that Globant ended up conceiving for Disney. Similar to Globant, the other company that I think is doing some really interesting stuff is EPAM. They have presence in Mexico and with larger presence in Eastern Europe. And similar to Globant, a lot of the work that they're doing is some of the newer digital work. The unique thing about EPAM is that over the years, the company has really transformed itself. And that's really what's needed in a IIT services organization, is to really kind of look at where the world is going and constantly change and innovate your overall offering. With that, I'm wrapped up, and I'll turn it back to Avi to open it up for Q&A.
Great. Thanks, Arvind. This was an amazing overview of what's defining the industry and how players are. So I like your classification of pure digital play and the legacy players. I think people need to start looking at it as saying that, yes, everyone is moving towards digital, but really speaking, I think there is so much of an advantage of doing a significant transformation versus someone like Globant, who you would say was born digital, if you may, even way back in 2007 and 8, for example. So thank you so much. I'll pass it on to Itzel very quickly, but I just wanted to kind of ask you a question: is what is the biggest challenge that the Indian IT players are going to face, now going forward? One big challenge.
Yeah. So I think it's a classic innovator's dilemma, where they have 70-80% of the revenues that are essentially tied to legacy work, to work that's going away. One of the things you talked about it is we're going to go to 100% cloud. So when you make the journey to cloud, you're essentially dumping some of the old technology. And the issue is that these Indian players have 70 to 80% of the revenues coming from this older technology that's essentially going to be thrown away. And I think just really having the discipline to say, we are really not going to focus on the legacy revenue, I think is going to be pretty difficult for them.
Right. Okay. The other question is, there are lots of small and medium companies. I mean, if you look at it, EPAM, Globant I would say from a global perspective, they are mid-sized companies, if you may.
Yeah.
Right? And so even if you look at the top 10 mid-sized companies, EPAM, Globant would come to my mind in that sense. But there are huge number of companies which are what we call as small and medium enterprises in Latin America. And there are countries that have, population anywhere from 3 million to, obviously something like Brazil. What is the biggest opportunity for majority of these companies that they did not have before?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think kind of, this pandemic, I think, has really forced people to rethink how they can source talent. And in many ways, this pandemic has resulted as we're all living through it like social distancing, and we're all like locked down in our houses. So that's one mindset. With that said, just like what we're doing today even with Zoom, it's also like made the world a much smaller place. And the willingness to really interact with, essentially the workforce, or with companies that are, that would normally take a 6-7 hour flight or 12-hour flight, you can just instantly get on Zoom and have those conversations. So I think kind of the biggest opportunity is really kind of to kind of look at this reset of mindset, where companies are kind of the Fortune 500 companies are going to be more willing to work with small and medium-sized companies in other countries.
Great. No, thanks very much, Arvind. Just to your last comment, bigger companies are going to be very willing. So let me bring it to real for everyone listening, that this is not just a sentence that Arvind said, this is a reality. So last year, more than 12 months ago, I was engaged with one of the top 5 banks in the US and one of the big 4 companies from among the Deloitte's, KPMG, EY, and PwC. And the bank basically wanted someone to come in and take the entire KYC refresh job out, which they had about 1,400 people, mostly in the US in that sense. Now, the bank would have not even thought about doing something like this before, but they did. But at the same time, the regulators had asked them to do 4 times as many transactions, basically, in terms of looking at the KYC refreshes more often for the mid and the high risk clients. And they had to go from 1,400 to almost less than 6,000 people, by the way. And they said, we cannot do this, and that we don't want to take the burden of the cost. And so they asked someone to come in and take it all away and do it for a much lesser price. And it would have costed them about 1.2 billion or 1.4 billion over a course of 7 years. The end solution basically was, there was one of the largest IT companies also involved in this. They did not win it, even though they had a solution that was the closest to this. But what won was the Big 4, the bank for the Big 4, one of the large outsourcers for the business process. But also there was a startup on the KYC and AML that had really not proven itself too much, but it had the strong AI engine in that sense. And then the intelligent automation. So the end result was the cost came down to 50%. So instead of it costing 200 million a year, it came down to $100 million a year. And the company made money, everyone made money. Also, what it did was it increased the speed of processing by 5 times. So what I'm saying is that I could have never believed a bank would actually say yes to a solution that had a lot of moving parts, that basically had a startup, and it had not been proven before. So what I'm saying to all of you is, really speaking, big customers are very, very willing, very open to working with innovative and small companies. Itzel, I'll pass it on back to you.
Actually, Itzel, if I can just jump in to ask Avi a couple of questions as well.
Okay, fine.
So, I've known you for a long time, and I don't know if it was like 10 years or 15 years ago, but back in the day, we were talking about how you're going to have this globalization kind of accelerate, and and how some of the technologies are going to change certain things, which has really kind of panned out, right? Like, so I don't know if when we spoke, it was 2008 or 2010, but you had kind of outlined where you think the world is kind of going to, and a lot of those things have kind of panned out. But are there, kind of looking at 2020, are there a couple of things that have surprised you, either in terms of the speed or how things have really evolved?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that has surprised everyone is the fact that you never imagined that people would actually the client would allow you to work from home. Right? This time there was no option, by the way, because we have been trying for a long time to let the clients be more trusting of of the security and other things that we have, and it was very, very difficult. I mean, even if you look at the fact that countries like India or Philippines or even Latin American, you would have these you would have export zones and things like that where things would not be able to go out and all of that stuff. And now look at it. I mean, people would not allow their laptops. There's lots of things. Now what's happening? Everyone is working from home, fine. And there was so much restrictions on BPOs not to allow paper, this, that. Everything is now gone all of a sudden. I mean, I could not have expected that this was ever possible. And all of a sudden, overnight, it has been made possible, fine. I mean, every company that I now talk to has been very successful in, first of all, having the clients agree, and secondly, the technology be available to do that stuff. So I think that's surprised me. I think, you talked about the fact that if I was to look at my lens, what's going to happen, I really believe that any business process company, doesn't matter what they think they are doing right now, they need to really look at their business being in a significant danger and really go into innovation, get into AI, get into intelligent automation. Because if they don't do it today, I don't know whether they will exist as a business in 5 years from now. Okay, so they may see things being okay for a year or two, but I have known some of the top 5 customer service companies, top 5 in the world, right now lose 30% of their business because of the fact that clients don't have work now, because the industry, like airline industry, the hotel industry, and 30% of the business they've lost because they were not able to transition people to home, right? So can you imagine a company losing 60% of the business overnight? It cannot survive as a company, by the way. So what I'm talking about is, maybe it was because of pandemic, but because of AI and everything, this is exactly what's going to happen. Thank you.
Great. And just one last one. Kind of looking out of the next like 12 months to 24 months, next 1 to 2 years, what are you most excited about? I mean, there's certainly a lot of worry out there, but what gets you most excited?
I think what gets me most excited is 2 things. One is the customer experience. I'm amazed as to how we as an industry have been able to do that stuff. Now, if you look at it, Accenture has been acquiring companies, which are media agencies, advertising agencies, for the last 5, 6, 7 years. Right now, they have a very, very big investment. They're spending $1 billion every year in acquisition, by the way. Look at that. It is not just about Accenture. It is about all of us in the industry. So that's one thing I'm very, very excited, because that really creates amazing client experience. And that's the number one excitement for me. And the other thing, which is a little bit more technical, is I am a big believer of data analytics and the AI stuff that comes out of looking at the data. So even, for example, drug stuff, like what's happening with trying to find a vaccine for the COVID stuff, whether it's a clinical trial, whether it is the approval process, I think that can be significantly accelerated, like 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. I don't know how many times, by the way, but it can be significantly accelerated by using AI and the data models and the data. So you don't have to go out and do each and everything in terms of a dumb, trial itself on human beings. I think a lot of good models will exist, which will be 99.99%, for example, accurate in terms of doing it, off the human stuff.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
I think we'll give a few minutes for the audience and see if they have any questions, Sarvan.
Absolutely, thank you. I didn't want to interrupt you guys. We were having such a good conversation and such interesting insights that I didn't want to interrupt. Yes, we do have a couple of questions from the audience. One that we thought was interesting was, although it is true that the information technology services are favored compared to other traditional services in the pandemic, although you just mentioned that they're still feeling very much the repercussion of it, and that will accelerate the digitization, the pandemic will, it is also true that it will increase the gap between the countries that are more developed versus those that are not so much. So how can that, how do you consider that we can tackle that challenge?
So my view on that stuff is the companies that are more developed, I think are going to accelerate their journey if they have promoted innovation and et cetera, fine? So, I wouldn't name the country, but it's one of the largest countries in the world. They are really closed to having innovation come in from outside of their country. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, everything, even the Facebook equivalent and everything else is their local stuff. I mean, they are not a global player, right? And so I think you need to be open to bring in innovation and collaborate. This is an age of collaboration. The biggest companies are collaborating with the smallest startups. So I think that's one thing. So you have to really bring in the innovation stuff. So that goes to even the developing countries as well. I mean, people should have a should have the urgency right now. It doesn't matter whether it's Jamaica, or whether it's Peru, whatever it is. They should have the urgency to put in, entrepreneurship programs right from the school itself, and to basically put in, innovation hubs, if you may, to be able to somehow promote entrepreneurship and innovation within the country, because that will become the most important skill. Everything else will come around it. Everything else will be available on digital training. But this is something that cannot just be done by oneself. It has to be done by the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Arvind, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of resonate what Avi said, but the couple of things is, look, I mean, countries that are essentially less developed, they really have an opportunity to really leapfrog. They really don't have to have the burden of dealing with like legacy technology. I mean, the one drawback that some of the developing countries they have is they have essentially like a two technology infrastructure. One is the old technology, one is the new technology, and you have to constantly replace kind of the old with the new, and that ends up being very, very sort of cumbersome. But companies that don't, I mean, countries that have not much of a technology infrastructure, they can leapfrog and go straight to like a 5G. They can leapfrog and just go straight to mobile experiences. And I think they in many ways they're well positioned to actually kind of accelerate the digital spend. But yes, they do have to have an innovation mindset to really get there.
Yes, absolutely. And to Avi's point, many of the countries who have been investing in innovation in the past are reaping the benefits of it now. And maybe it's a lesson for other countries too. Although the benefits might be, like way down the road, it's a good lesson for them to invest now, Avi.
I'm sure those companies are happy now, by the way, and they will. They'll be happy in 2021 also, by the way. So this is so now they'll say, finally, thank God we invested in this. Yes.
Exactly. Wonderful. Okay, so one last question, and it's a very easy question, no worries. So don't sweat it. Which will be the successful business model in the future of global services? Like very, very easy.
So Arvind, take a shot at it.
Yeah. So I think kind of the business model is one that has entire focus on digital. Like there's many easy ways of going after the legacy work, but essentially having a 100% digital focus, 100% focus on things that matter. Cloud, analytics, social. AI, cognitive, design. I mean, kind of companies that are really kind of offering kind of the newer type of services. I think will really thrive in this environment. So I mean, I think the ones that I'm most impressed upon, kind of having looked at these companies day in and day out, is Globant, EPAM, and Endava. These three are the ones that really stand out for me.
Wonderful. Avi?
Yes, so I think absolutely right, totally agree with it. And I think if you look at it, when Accenture started the journey, we spent a lot of time, I was involved in that, a lot of time thinking as to how do we go about it. And eventually we said, we will almost form an Accenture Digital that will focus on it as if it's a separate business. We didn't want to kind of blink an eye on the legacy that we were doing, and we wanted to focus completely on it with a complete new thinking from the ground up, by the way, to make it a totally digital company. And Accenture succeeded in that. And now they have kind of integrated back into the rest of the organization, but only after they became digital, right? While the industry at that time, because I used to talk to the CEOs of the other industry players, by the way, saying, no, digital is important. It needs to be a part of each and every part of the organization. But basically, what it did was it lost it, because then you were a legacy organization trying to transform it, and that was not the right strategy to do it, right? So this is where I think, to the Arvind's point, we have a big opportunity in Latin America to leapfrog, right? And companies that doesn't matter whether they are EPAM or they are any other company. Globant, I would say, is born digital, if you may, so that they are fine. But everyone else needs to really see as to how they can create a company or recreate something which is completely digital.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you both. We are out of time. I don't know if there's any final thoughts, you know, a quick sentence that you want to leave us with before we say goodbye.
Well, nothing except that I think a big opportunity for the countries. Don't be enamored by the past of having scale and very low cost. It is all about customer experience. It's all about working to bring in innovation with the largest of the clients. Good luck.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and you know, the way I kind of look at this is, you know, this pandemic or crisis that we have is going to create a lot of opportunity. And kind of just looking back at any of the big crises we have had over the last like 30 years, has been an opportunity to form something that ends up being really great. So go be great.
Go be great. That's an excellent way to close this. Just go and be great. Thank you so much, Arvind. Abhi, it was a pleasure having you today. Thank you again. They are on the West Coast, so they're on Pacific time. So this is an extremely like generous gesture of from your side to dedicate your time to us today. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you. Remember our next session. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry. So in about 30 minutes. Thank you again, and see you soon.
Yes. Bye.